Sure, Mataji. Between, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, but Mataji, your internet looks a little dull, I guess, because your video is a kind of, little dull for me. I don't know if everybody is facing the same.
Yeah, Mataji, it's
Blur.
dull.
Yeah.
Okay, Mataji, 1 second. I'll call Aditya.
No, just do one thing. With your hand, just rub on the camera, you'll be fine. On the camera of your laptop, just rub on it.
Mataji, clean my webcam. So is this internet connection?
Internet problem. Right? It says Radhika Kasturi's network bandwidth is low on the top.
Yeah,
okay, so
the bandwidth is low. You're right. Yeah, now it looks like it's better. It's improving. Anita Mataji, what do you think?
Mataji?
Is it okay?
Yes, Mataji, now it's okay. Yeah, you can start the recording, Mataji. Yeah.
So Hare Krishna, thank you all so much for joining us again for another session of Bhagavad Gita as it is. 18 chapters and 18 sessions. So we are very happy to have Radhika Kasturi Mataji back with us. And today we will be studying chapter 5. And as we had earlier mentioned, this is going to be an overview of the chapters. So in one day, in one session, in an hour, we will be finishing one chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The idea is to have a complete bird-eyes view of the Bhagavad Gita. So that is the reason we are doing a chapter per session. And this is a certificate-based course. So at the end of the 18 chapters, the attendees will be given certificates and we are recording the attendance. So having said that, I'd like to hand over the session to Radhika Mataji. Mataji, you can take over now. Thank you. Hare Krishna. You have to unmute, Radhika.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Mataji?
Yes.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. So my first of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Preeti Vilasni Mataji, to Lalitangi Mataji and Sukasahari Mataji for humbly giving me this opportunity to speak in this forum. Thank you, Matajis. I totally appreciate it. And so to each and every Vaishnava on the call, I pay my humble obeisances before I start this session on Bhagavad Gita chapter 5. I really want to get your blessings and your wishes so that I speak something that is relevant to the topic on chapter 5. Thank you, dear Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. So with this, we will get started. So the first one is, doing the prayers. So we can all do the prayers. Om Ajnana Thimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashaita Deshatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His grace, His grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter of his lotus feet. Our respectful obeisances unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami. You're kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Deva and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I offer my respectful obeisances to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Lord Advaita, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Pandit, Srivas Thakur, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Now to our Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, dear devotees. So we are going to get started. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So now we are going to the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we have to understand the connection from previous chapter so that we are able to relate to what this chapter is all about. So Krishna, he spoke of attaining the peace of knowledge in 4.39. And then he spoke about renouncing karma by jnana in 4.41. And then asked Arjuna to take up karma yoga in 4.42. So Arjuna, he asks about renunciation, and then he asks about karma yoga also. Which is better? Is renunciation better or is karma yoga better? So can you please enlighten me, Krishna? Because my mind is confused now. So please enlighten me, because this 4th chapter, you talked about both of these things, and then you're asking me to fight again after talking about renunciation. So I'm kind of confused now. Krishna, please help me with this confusion. So as you all understand, I think in the 3rd chapter, Sukasagari Mataji would have talked to you about the yoga ladder. It's very important for us to understand what this yoga ladder comprises of. So first is, I'll just quickly briefly revise this yoga ladder for just to make sure that everybody remembers this part. So Karma Kanda is the one that encourages regulated sense gratification. It is meant to bring the general mass of people to the platform of religiosity. Then, so after Karma Kanda, you move on to the next section, that is the Sakama Karma Yoga. Here, this person who is the Sakama Karma Yogi, he understands transcendence as a goal, but he's not able to give up the fruits to Krishna yet in this particular yoga. He's not able to give it up. He has this material desires and he works for the fruits of those desires. So then comes the Nishkama Karma Yoga, where he gives attachment to the fruits of his work, that is detached work. And then comes Jnana Yoga. It is a platform of philosophical inquiry where he is detached both from the work and the fruits of action. After that is the Ashtanga Yoga process, where the Jnana Yogi, he actually elevates himself to the platform of meditation. So he engages himself in meditation. Then comes the Bhakti Yoga in the yoga ladder. But again, everything culminates to the Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga is nothing but the process of devotional service. And you don't even have to go through the steps. You can directly enter into Bhakti Yoga, because all these yoga at the end of the day, they all culminate to Bhakti Yoga. So this is the synopsis of the yoga ladder. Are you all clear with this understanding before we actually get into the verse? Hare Krishna. I believe yes. Matajis, are you all able to hear me?
Yes, Radhika Mataji.
Okay, sorry Mataji, it's just kind of seeing my face on the screen and
Yes, Mataji, everything is clear.
Okay.
Now allowed people can unmute themselves. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, now let me give you a brief overview before we get started with this chapter. I'm going to talk about first to 6 verses, and then I'll go through the slides so that you can better understand what's going on in the slides. So now Arjuna is worried. He said, "My dear Krishna, what should I do? Should I be involved in this costly warfare as a Kshatriya, or better renounce and I can purify my heart by going to the forest? And then I can go back to Godhead." But then Krishna told, "See, your heart is not yet pure. If somebody were to take up sannyas, then their heart must be pure. Then only they won't feel agitated. Then only if they have impure desires in the heart, and if they're wearing the sannyasi dress, they won't be able to come down again and start working, because it's like you're degrading yourself. You already upgraded yourself to sannyas by going into the forest, and still if you have some impure desires in the heart, and if your heart is not purified, you're going to for you to come back is going to be difficult. So he told Arjuna, so that's why you work in devotion. Better you do some work with a detached spirit. You don't have to externally renounce yourself, but internally be detached, and that is the best. That is what Krishna, he's actually advising Arjuna in this scenario, because he said, right, he's confused. What should I do? Whether I should take up sannyas or I should work in devotion. Please tell me which one is better. And now Krishna, he has given the advice to Arjuna saying, working in devotion is the best. That way you can be internally renounced, and that is what is preferable. So if you take up sannyas, and then if your mind is not purified, then what? So the safer bet is for you to go to Nishkama Karma Yoga, do your prescribed duty. In that manner, your heart is going to be purified. That means there will be purification of desires too. So this is what is told by Krishna to Arjuna. Okay, now let's go through the verses, and to clarify the scenario, I'll also give you an example to better understand what's going on. Okay, now let's go to the slide here. Although Krishna has now explained the transcendental knowledge to him, Arjuna, he is still confused. Therefore, chapter 5 opens up with a question similar to the one Arjuna asked at the beginning of chapter 3, if you all remember. Which is better, work or renunciation of work? Arjuna vacha Sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samshashi yashreyayeta yorekam tanme bruhi shunishtitam. So this is the first verse. So let's just see the quick overview of 1 to 6 verses. So the title says, Nishkama Karma Yoga is equal to but easier than renouncing work. This is what Krishna actually told Arjuna. So the first 3 texts, let's see. Arjuna again asked Krishna whether renunciation is superior to working in devotion. Krishna replies that devotional work is superior to renunciation of work, and that one who is detached from the results of his work is the one who is truly renounced. 2 to 6. Although the results of renunciation and devotion service are ultimately the same, the devotional service is superior. For the devotee, he can quickly achieve Krishna through this process. So this is being clarified through 1 to 6, saying work in devotion is better, safer, and easier, and hence go that route. Don't go to the renunciation, because your heart is not yet purified. Krishna's response. Renunciation and the two paths as different is ignorance. But of the two, work in devotion service is better. It's easier, quicker, and a sure path. You're not going to come down or fall down. It is going to gradually, the purification will happen, and in the process, you are going to attain perfection. So even through renunciation, you are going to achieve purification, but for that, you need a purified heart. At this point, you don't have it, so you're not going that route. This is Krishna's suggestion. Just to make it interesting, I thought of sharing a story with you all, if that's okay. So now there is this king there is a king called Chikadwaja. Okay, this Raja, he once decided to renounce everything in the world, and he said, let me go to the forest. And while he was sitting on the forest, so he renounced everything now. And then while he was sitting in the forest, his mind was extremely agitated, very, very disturbed. So he spent a few months in the forest trying to chant, trying to meditate, and trying to live a life of an ascetic. So one day he happened to see another sadhu in the forest. The sadhu was very bright-faced and he was fully absorbed in the Lord. And then he was also very cool-minded. He had retired from all the activities and he was also a monk. So he went to meet to him. King Chakadwaja, he said, he asked the monk, I see you're very peaceful. You're so joyful. But look at me. My mind is extremely agitated and disturbed. Therefore, I've come to seek advice to you. And that the sadhu asked him, I'm meeting you for the first time. I don't know who you are. Can you please tell me who you are so I can relate to you? You don't know who I am? Really? You don't know who I am? I am the king. Shikadwaja, Maharaj Shikadwaja. And he said, I have so many elephants, thousands of horses, so much of money in my treasury, so many millions of people in my kingdom, and so many soldiers who work for me. And I have conquered so many kingdoms also. So I have expanded my kingdom far and wide. And you tell me you don't know about me? You know how many wives I had? Now, this monk, he said, wait a minute. Last half an hour, you were talking about the glory of yourself. Now I can understand why your mind is so disturbed. You're attached to so many things. That's your problem. So renunciation is just not giving up, renouncing everything like your kingdom, your horses, your elephant, your wives, and all that externally. Renunciation is giving up attachment to those things as well. Renunciation means to give up attachment to those things and also the pride that comes along with it. You're talking about your designation, saying you're a king, this, that, and all that. All that has to be given up. And the pride that comes along with that also has to be given up. That is renunciation. So this is what this sage clarified to Maharaj Sikadwaja. And now he said, once you do that, once you renounce all your attachment and pride that are associated with this worldly things, and once after that, what you have is a purified heart. And when you have a purified heart, at that time, you can experience so much bliss, Paramananda. That is when you can really understand and get the peace and satisfaction that you may want, not only in this world, but also next world. So till then, you should not artificially renounce the world, but you should work in devotion, which is Nishkama Karma. So this was the advice that the other sage gave to Maharaj Shikadwaja. So with this, we clearly understand what is renunciation, isn't it? So with that in mind, keeping that in context, we will move on to our next verse. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. I'm sorry, I'm kind of not seeing anybody on camera here.
Yes,
and
Mataji.
what the reaction is. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So the seventh verse says, Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. So let's understand the meaning for this verse. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Or though always working, he is never entangled. So let's try to further understand this verse by delving deep into it. Okay. So yoga yukto vishuddhatma. So what does that mean? One who works in devotion, who is a nishkama karma yogi, he is a pure soul. And this person is Vijitatma Jitendriya. He controls his minds and senses. And he is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though he is performing some activities, he is not entangled, meaning he is not bound. So here, Srila Prabhupada uses the word Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. It is to refer to the qualities such as Vishuddhatma. What is Vishuddhatma? A Vishuddhatma is a person whose purified soul with a purified intelligence. And Vijitatma, this person is self-controlled. And then another quality he talks about is Jitendriyaha. This person, he has conquered his senses also. And that is the reason when he possesses these three qualities, what are the three qualities we talked about? That is Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriyaha. When he possesses these three qualities, he feels everyone is dear to him. Okay, he doesn't have any kind of, he feels everyone is dear to him. So now we can understand, right? See, if you can have a wonderful life where our inner faculties are controlled, the mind, intelligence, false ego, they misdirect us to so many undesirable things. So if all of them, they are controlled properly, if they act as if they are going to act as our friend, then what happens? Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. This person, he becomes a well-wisher of all the living beings. Why? Because this person is Krishna-centered. He is not self-centered. Only when people are self-centered, the people get alienated, right? There is no friendship. Because if they are very selfish, nobody wants to talk to them or nobody wants to do anything with regards to them, right? But if this person is selfless, or if he is Krishna centered, then what happens? Then he becomes dear to everybody, and everybody becomes dear to him. That is what is being clarified by Srila Prabhupada here. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. This person, he becomes a well-wisher of all the living entities. Then what happens? So the important point to notice, kurvanapi nalipyate. This person, even if he acts, such a person, because he has no attachment, this person, even though if he acts, he doesn't cause any reaction. There is no entanglement to this person. That is what is being clarified in the last line, kurvan api nalipyate. Okay. So this is the import of the verse, and now we can understand what Srila Prabhupada wants to say through this verse. So I'm just reading directly from the purport here in the slide. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. So when we are Krishna centered and when we are not self-centered, then we become the well-wisher of everyone. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna. Just as the leaves and branches of the tree, they are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water to the root of the tree, the water gets distributed to everything, that is the leaves, the branches, and just like how the supplying food to the stomach, the energy gets automatically distributed to all the parts in the body. Likewise, when you pour water to the root, all of them, they get distributed to the different leaves, branches, and all of that. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is a servant to all, he becomes dear to everybody. So this is the understanding of this verse number 7. Right? Let's I can talk about this a little more. Now Srila Prabhupada, he clarifies a beautiful point. That's why I want to talk more on this verse. So now one may say, is Arjuna not being offensive to everyone because he's going to a war, he's going to kill people? Isn't that the case? So we should understand Arjuna was only superficially offensive. We saw that from our second chapter. When I spoke, I said the soul cannot be slain, meaning the soul cannot be killed. So spiritually, no one is killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All we saw was that the dresses are changed by the order of Krishna. And therefore, Arjuna, even though he is fighting in the battle of Kurukshetra, he was not really fighting, meaning he was just simply carrying out the orders of Lord Krishna. Such a person who just fulfills the order of Krishna is Krishna-centered, and there will be no reactions to his work. This is what is the connection that is going on between Arjuna and Krishna here by this verse. Okay, I wanted to clarify that before we move on to the next verse. The next verse is the 10th verse of the 5th chapter, which is Brahmanyadaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyatena sapapena padmapatra ivambasha. One who offers the results of his action to the Supreme while performing the duties without attachment is unaffected by the sins in his actions, just as how the lotus leaf is untouched by the water. So let's try to further understand this verse. Now, this particular verse is going to talk about how a yogi acts for the sake of the Supreme Lord. So that is the connection between the last verse in this verse, how this person, how this yogi is going to act for the sake of the Lord. Okay, Brahmanyadaya karmani. Adaya means to offer, to resign, to hand over. Say when one thinks of the absolute truth and when one does the karma, then sangam tyaktva karotiyaha. One gives attachment to the acts. Lipyate nasa papena. He is unaffected by the sins, just as how the lotus leaf is untouched by the water. So here Prabhupada clarifies a very good point. He says one should be situated in knowledge. What kind of knowledge? He should know that he should do his duty with detachment. Such a person, even though he is doing so many things, he knows that he is the soul and he is aloof from all these activities. With this realization, if he performs his duty without attachment, by surrendering the results onto Lord Krishna, then there will be no reactions, sinful reactions that comes out of his work. Just as how a lotus leaf sits in the water, but if you look at the lotus leaf, it is untouched by the water. The lotus leaf has a waxy surface, right? The water immediately glides off the lotus leaf. In the same way, the reactions also glide off when one performs Nishkama Karma Yoga. Like how the water glides off from the lotus leaf, we also see that the reaction actually glides off by performing Nishkama Karma Yoga. So this is what is the understanding of verse number 10. Okay. I just explained the purport too for you so that we are good with this verse. Okay. So moving on to the next verse in the section, which is performing Nishkama Karma Yoga. So what is the relation? What is the link? How are we connecting it from the 10th verse? The question can be raised. If someone is detached from work due to his knowledge that he is the spirit and not the body, what is the purpose of doing the work? Right? Why should we even perform the work? Yeah, I'm detached from the work because of the knowledge. But again, you know, you are the soul and not the body. But what is the purpose for performing this work? That is Arjuna's question. And that will be clarified in this number 12th verse of the 5th chapter, which is Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena phale shakto nibhadyate. By giving up the results of the activities, a karma yogi, he attains unadulterated peace. Ayukta kama karena, one not engaged in karma yoga, being attached to the results, out of lust, he becomes bound up. So let's understand. Yuktaha, such a person who is well situated or well connected with the spiritual world, who is a Krishna conscious person basically, karma phalam tyaktva, such a person, he gives attachment to the fruits of his work. Shantim apnoti, does the person gets peace? What kind of peace? It is unshakable peace. Ayukta kama karena. What does that mean? This person is ayuktaha, who is not connected to the absolute truth. He is not a Krishna conscious person. Such a person is kama karena. This person who is ayuktaha, who is not Krishna conscious, he acts out of lust, selfish desire. Phale shakto, this person is attracted by the desire for the fruits. Nibhadyate, such a person, he gets bound. So this is the word-to-word understanding of this verse. Moving on, let's understand what is Krishna trying to say here. So this person, because of the selfish motivation, because of his, this person, first let's talk about Yuktaha. Okay, this person, he's not selfish. That is why he doesn't get bound. That is why he is going to get a long-lasting peace. He's going to get supreme peace, right? Naishtikim, unshakable peace he's going to get. On the contrary, we see the other person, ayuktaha, because of lust, selfish desire, he is going to be bound up and he is going to be entangled. So just to understand the ayuktaha part, I thought it was interesting. It is interesting to quote an analogy. We'll see there is this miserly conditioned soul, okay? in this world, this person, he's going from one activity to another activity. And when he moves from one activity to another activity, what happens? Sometimes he's able to get happiness and sometimes he's put into misery. Okay, just compare it to a dog. There is a street dog, and this street dog, he also goes from one place to another place. For what? For a scrape of food. Sometimes he gets it, and sometimes he's kicked away, he's shooed away. People throw stones at him. Go away, like that they say. So in this way, just like this, a stray dog, he sometimes gets the morsel of food and sometimes he doesn't get the morsel of food he wants. He's shooed away. Similarly, this conditioned soul, he goes from one activity another activity, and in the process, he goes through the cycle of birth and death, sometimes getting happiness, sometimes getting distress, and this way he's shooed away from happiness sometimes, right? So that is how we actually compare the condition of this miserly conditioned soul to that of a street dog or a stray dog on the street. So how humiliating it is to find the soul. I mean, how humiliating it is to see this soul, he actually finds himself in the material world. The soul is meant to eternally enjoy with Lord Krishna in his spiritual kingdom, doing the pastimes with Krishna forever, and have Sachitananda, spiritual bliss, right? But what is happening here? Because of this ayuptaha, because of not being Krishna centered, because of being selfish, he gets bound up just like that of a street dog or a stray dog. That is the status of this conditioned soul who is ayuptaha. Are you all able to connect it so far? So let's try to now move on to our next section, which is very important for us to understand. So we'll be seeing the three doers section. So Krishna will explain and help us understand how to be, I mean, so far we saw how to work in a detached spirit, and now we are going to understand the Supreme and how to actually attain liberation. So this will be the next section that we are going to see. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide. Okay, so here is a city of 9 gates. So what is Srila Prabhupada trying to say? Let's just read it from the purport that I have on the slide. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of the living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over this universe. This body consists of 9 gates: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, anus, and the genitals. The living entity in this conditioned stage identifies himself with the body, but when he so this conditioned living entity, he identifies himself with the body, but there is a but there. But when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while he is in the body. So very important point that Srila Prabhupada brings through this purport is that this person, he can identify himself with the body. That is one option. The second option is he can identify being the soul and identify the Lord within him. And that way he can become free like the Lord while even in the material body. So even though this material body is made of matter, you can still become free. That is very good, right? How can we become free? When we identify ourselves, with as the soul, and also meditate on the Lord within us, then that way you can become free. This is what Srila Prabhupada clarifies in the purport. City of 9 gates. So the body is compared to that of a city. You don't identify yourself with the city, but you have to identify the Lord within you, and that way you can become free. So this is what is being talked about in the purport. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. This is a very important slide, and it talks about the knowledge of the 3 doers. So the first doer, let's understand this more. The role of soul, I'll just read it out first. The role of soul is the initiator. The role of material nature is facilitating. And the role of the Lord is sanctioning. Okay, what happens here? Let's try to understand. So the first stage, what happens is that the soul desires. The soul desires means we as Jivatma, we have desires. And what happens? Now the soul desires. Then the request actually goes to the super soul. Because we have some desires and somebody has to approve it. We don't have permission to approve it ourselves. Then that means all our desires will get fulfilled no matter what, right? So it goes to the super soul. The super soul looks at it. Okay, Radhika is desiring this particular thing. Does she deserve it? I don't know if she deserves it. If she deserves it, I can approve it. If she doesn't deserve it, then I'm going to disapprove it. That is what super soul does. The super soul, it sanctions based on whether or not that person deserves it or not. Whether seeing the if that person deserves, then the super soul approves it. If the person doesn't deserve, the super soul rejects it. Okay, and now the action has to be performed, right? We desire, the super soul sanctions, but the action has to be done. That is when the material nature comes into play. The material nature is the one which fulfills the orders of the super soul. Okay, and so this is kind of the explanation of the chart that is given here, where it talks about three personalities: super soul, soul, and material nature. Now, so we should very clearly understand, we cannot put the blame on the Lord. You should not say, oh, Lord only approved this. No, that is why I'm going through this particular scenario, whatever that is happening to me. You have to very well understand the first thing is you desire, and the Lord is not initiating anything. It is you who is desiring, and that is why whatever is happening is happening. And living entity, he is responsible for his own good and bad actions, and he is only the responsible person for his consequences also. The super soul, he is the ultimate controller of the activities, but he is not the initiator nor the material nature. They're all, the material nature is the agent of the Lord, right? It is the servant of the Lord. So you are the initiator and you are the responsible. You have the responsibility because it is you who desired. And because of that desire, we have a sanctioner. And because of that, we have somebody who is facilitating it for you. That is material nature. Okay, this is the understanding of the three doers. Now we need to understand this through an example, so it can just be made clear. Before that, what does ignorance bewilders means? Ignorance bewilders meaning, under the spell of ignorance, the living entity, he claims the Lord to be responsible for his conditional existence. As we know, it is the living entity and his desires and his karma is the reason for why he's put into such a situation, and it's not the Lord by any means. We shouldn't, that is, if you're saying that is because of your ignorance. So we need to clarify that. If you are thinking, oh, it's just the Lord who's responsible for all the actions, not at all. Okay, it is the living entity who is responsible for his actions and reactions. Okay, now let's try to look at it through an example so you can just better understand what this means. I'll give you maybe 2-3 examples. You can try to correlate it to whatever you understand, and because this is a very important concept, and I just want to make sure that everybody is clear. Say, for example, there is an alcoholic. The alcoholic desires to have alcohol. Now the material, now he goes to the super soul sanctions his request. That means there is a government is sanctioning all the liquor stores, and they can, I mean, because the government did not ban it, everyone can purchase liquor. And what happens? The material nature facilitate, meaning there is shops there through which this particular person, he goes and gets the alcohol, and that way his desire is fulfilled. So we see the material nature fulfilling, meaning there is shops through which the material nature fulfills the request of the alcoholic to drink. And the government sanctions, meaning there is no restrictions on alcohol usage. So this person, the government here acts as a sanctioner. And then we also see that there is a desire that is coming from the Jivatma for him to take some drinks or liquor. So this is one scenario. So we'll understand and see multiple scenarios as to how this all works. Say, for example, the soul says, I want to become a billionaire. Now, the super soul thinks about this person. Oh, Radhika, she wants to be a billionaire. Oh my God, it's not possible. It's not in her karma. She doesn't deserve it. Reject. Now I got rejected. I cannot become a billionaire anymore. And if suppose if I get that sanction fulfilled, then there will be a lot of action that could take place, because of which I become a millionaire. So the material nature is acting as a facilitating doer, the soul is acting as a desiring doer, and then the Lord, he's acting as a sanctioning doer. Let's look into another scenario too. Say, for example, I desire to speak. Now, I desire to speak, but if my sense organ speech is not working, then I will not be able to speak, right? So both have to work. And I may have my sense organ, but if I have no desire to speak, would I be able to speak? I mean, nothing will come out of me, right? Because the desire to speak comes, I mean, I'm speaking because there is a desire for me to speak to you all. And the material, I mean, and then the organ is there, and because of which I'm able to speak. So there is bodily organs, the senses need to cooperate for me to speak. In this way, the Lord, he has to approve of me speaking, and I should have the desire to speak, and the material nature has to fulfill my desire if the Lord approves it. So this is the three-way combo, the three doers. This is the concept of the three doers. And we need to make sure that we are clear in the understanding of this before we move on to our next section. Hope this section is clear with the different examples. I can quote many examples too if you want me to quote, but so far I hope the concept is clear. Hari Bol.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. The summary. What does Krishna say here? Devotees, they control the mind and senses. They act only for Krishna. By giving up material designations, they don't create karma, and they live happily in the body, even in the city of 9 gates. By what? By giving up all the material designations, they are giving up they don't create any karma. In divine consciousness, the devotee knows he is only the desirer, and Paramatma is the sanctioner, and material nature is the executor. It is ignorance to think that you're the doer. It is okay for you to think you're one of the doers, but you are not the only doer. We have Paramatma and material nature who are also playing their parts. A devotee, by desiring only the will of the God, is beyond any reaction. Okay. So who am I? Only the devotee knows. Ignorance makes us identify with our body. That is, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an actor, I'm an engineer. That is all because of our bodily identification. We say we actually connected with our body, and that is because of ignorance. But we should understand we are neither the proprietor nor the controller. This point I very well. The Lord sees if you actually deserve it or not. That is what is explained by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord is a constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma or the super soul, and therefore he can understand all the desires of the living individual soul, as one can smell the fragrance of, as one can smell the flavor of the flower by being near it. Just like that, the Lord is able to sense all the desires that is there in our heart. Desire is the subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desires as this person deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. The individual is not, therefore, omnipotent in fulfilling his desires, meaning he doesn't have any right to approve his desires. Lord is the one who has to sanction. And that is what is being clarified by Srila Prabhupada in the last line. Okay, let's move on to the 16th verse and try to further understand what that verse means. Okay, knowledge enlightens. So let's see. I'll just read the purport here by Srila Prabhupada. When one's ignorance is destroyed by knowledge, the spiritual knowledge reveals everything, just as the sun illuminates everything. What is that ignorance that was there? The ignorance that was there is the Lord is responsible for all whatever is happening to the conditional living entity. But now when we understand the three doer concept, meaning the jiva desires, the material nature, the super soul fulfills, super soul sanctions, and then the material nature fulfills. When you understand the three doers, then your ignorance goes away. Then what will happen? Spiritual knowledge is revealed, just as the sun illuminates everything. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself as God, he falls into the last snare of nescience. If the living entity is God, then how can he be bewildered by nescience? That is why it is not possible. Living entity is always put into this bewilderment and he cannot be Lord. That is what is the understanding when you actually get the real knowledge. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is perfect in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out to a bona fide spiritual master, like we saw in the 4th chapter by Lalitangi Mataji, a bona fide spiritual master. Under him, you have to learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will drive away all the nescience as the sun drives away darkness. This knowledge, it actually removes ignorance, and when ignorance is removed, the living entity, what does he do? He takes shelter of the super soul, and then he finally attains liberation. Okay, so this is what is being. Now we understand that the ignorance is gone, knowledge is God to us, and we have the spiritual knowledge. It is revealed just as the sun illuminates everything. We have also received this spiritual knowledge. And how is this knowledge got? This is got from our bona fide spiritual master. Okay. So it's a very important verse that we are going to come across. And here we are going to talk about a lot of practical application points as to how we can actually apply it in our everyday life. And we can also see the relevance here as to how this can be used. These verses, the following verses that we are going to see in the next section, we will be able to more so correlate it to our everyday life. So this verse, very, very popular verse, Vidya Vinaya Shampanne Brahmine Kavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadharshinaha. What is the meaning? The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see a learned Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater with equal vision. Such people are wise. So Srila Prabhupada here brings up a very important point. Bhakti transcends all discrimination. A devotee, he makes no distinction. And Paramatma within is same in all. Understand and explore this verse. Vidya Vinaya Shampane Bhamine Kavihastini. So we all understand the word by word meaning for all of these. In these, the living entities talked about, there is a gamut of living beings. If you look at it, there is Brahmana. He is the highest among the Varna. And then there is Swapake. He's not even a Sudra. He's considered below the Sudra. He's an outcast. He's a dog eater. So all these persons are seen equally by who? Pandita Samadarshina. This person, he sees, the self-realized person, he sees everybody equally. Not only them. Then if you look at it in the animal species, we have a gamut of animals. Who are those? There is a cow, there is an elephant, and the dog. All of them again are being looked at equally by this person. So we have to understand one point here. When we see, how do we see? We can either see with material eyes or we can see with spiritual eyes, meaning Jnana Shakshu. So when we have material eyes, we look at this person and we say, oh, he's a doctor. Ah, good. He must be making a lot of money. Oh, this person, he's a lawyer. Okay, he must be having a big bungalow. Oh, this person, he's a teacher. Maybe not much money. So like that, we will start making differences in our mind based on the material designations we see in a person. That is our conditioned mind. When we don't have the knowledge, when we don't have this exposure to Bhagavad Gita or any scriptures or hearing Krishna conscious Katha, Krishna Katha, then we will be looking with our material eyes. And there is another person who is self-realized. In this case, he looks at everybody. What does he see? He sees the soul and he sees the super soul within the person. He sees the super soul and the soul. These are the two things that he looks for. That is why he has this equal vision. Okay, and that is why he's not discriminating. He has this tad vision. Tad vision means he sees both the Atma and Paramatma. He sees them in everybody, in every living entity. Oh, does that mean he equally reciprocates with them in a similar fashion? Can we take it like that? No, he does not do equal reciprocation. So, for example, there is a tiger. We cannot embrace a tiger. Even the self-realized person, he is not going to embrace the tiger, right? Equal vision is not equal reciprocation. He has to have appropriate reciprocation. So one can go and embrace a cow, but one cannot go and embrace a tiger. So this is what appropriate reciprocation means. Okay, that must be understood. Srila Prabhupada very clearly points out in the purport. If you read it, then you will understand that appropriate reciprocation must be there. So this person, he's a transcendentalist. He's a learned transcendentalist, and that is why he is Pandita Samadarshina. So there is a beautiful lesson that we can learn from Srimad Bhagavatam that is being quoted. What is Prahlad Maharaj saying in this regard? And something that I would like to talk about. Demons, they think everyone as a friend or enemy. But Vaishnavas, they say that since everyone is the servant of the Lord, everyone is on the same platform. So the Vaishnavas, they don't treat the living entities neither as friends or enemies, but they try to spread Krishna consciousness, teaching Krishna consciousness to everyone. Okay, this is what they feel, because they know the real misery is forgetfulness of Krishna, and that is why they are teaching the subject of Krishna consciousness to everybody, and they know they are the servants of the servants of the servants of the Lords, and that is why they don't see any distinction between any person. Although there is 8,400,000 species of life, a Vaishnava, he feels oneness. A devotee should see the Supreme Personality of Godhead situated in everyone's heart and should see himself as the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. This is what Prabhupada clarifies in Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, 5th chapter, 12th verse. He says this vision is called Ekatvam, that is oneness. So I thought it was a very good point that Prahlad Maharaj was bringing about, and it's very important for us to understand that. This is what is equal vision. Now let's go on to our next verse. I know we are running out on time. Mataji, I have few more verses. Is it okay to move on? I mean, hope we are okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. Yahi samsparsha jaboga dukkayonaya evate atyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. The enjoyment arising from the contact of the senses with the sense objects is a source of distress. Such pleasures, they have a beginning and end. O Arjuna. So the wise men, they do not delight in them. So now let's try to understand. I'm not going to the word-to-word meeting. It is going to take some time. So let's just focus on the main import of these words. There are material activities. And these material activities, they are temporary because they have a beginning, they have an end. These learned transcendentalists, they know this material activity is a source of misery. And this material activity is also binding in nature. So what does this intelligent person do? The intelligent person, he goes and he has so much spiritual joy that he doesn't take part in these sensual pleasures. So whenever he comes in contact with the sense objects, he knows it's a source of misery. All this is temporary. It has beginning and end. So he avoids that. Okay. And now we have to understand the concept of Shreyas and Preyas. Meaning, this Shreyas means the material pleasures, they know it is temporary. but some people go for it because thinking about the immediate benefit, immediate pleasure they can derive out of it. Oh, I have this sense object, whatever that is. I mean, it could be, I don't know, whatever. So whatever you see, oh, it's a nice serial, TV serial I see on the TV, and I want to watch it. So I get immediate pleasure by seeing that TV serial, whatever. And then Preyas, this person, he doesn't indulge himself in the sense objects, but he looks at a long-term benefit. What is the long-term goal? What is the long-term vision? And he knows that transcendence is the goal, and that is why he focuses his attention on transcendental pleasures instead of going for the temporary pleasures. Okay, this is the understanding on this slide. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada here brings about a beautiful point. I'll also try to quote an example for you to better understand the scenario. Devotees, they are not attracted to the material sense pleasures, always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within, enjoying unlimited happiness by concentrating on the Supreme. King Rishabhadev, he's advising to his the sons from Srimad Bhagavatam. What is he saying? This human birth is very rare. It is so special. You should not waste your time on sense pleasures. Observe austerities and enjoy eternal happiness. That is what you need to do. If you look at the first line, Srila Prabhupada clarifies about disengaging the senses prematurely is a great danger for jnanis, because they say, this is, I don't want to, I want to renounce this sense object. I want to renounce that. I want to renounce this object also, because this is not going to give me liberation. But then at some point, because they are artificially renouncing all this, they will be having some urges to fulfill their desires, because of which they will fall down from the jnani platform. They have to fall down, because they are just artificially renouncing the sense pleasures. So artificially renouncing sense pleasures is not going to help you. So in the next verse, there will be a connection. But before that, we will try to understand this particular sense and sense objects with an example. Let's take the example of sage Vishwamitra. We all know about him. So in a dense jungle, in summer, in winter, in rain, in food, I mean, he was without food, he was without water, he was performing penances for thousands of years. Okay. Menaka, she was a gorgeous lady, and she was actually sent by Indra to break his penance. And this sage, he's totally withdrawn himself from all the worldly activities. He was also able to survive without water, food, and all that. And Menaka, she actually accomplished her mission so effortlessly. So what did she do? She used a weapon which is extremely lethal, and rarely has anyone survived its attack. So in the dark forest, the cry of ferocious animals also did not bother the great sage. He was not at all frightened looking at the animals or the sounds that came from the animals. No way disturbed. But as soon as he heard the anklets or anklet sounds of Menaka, his meditation was broken. He was looking, who's this? Who's this? I mean, who's this particular? Where is the sound coming from? I should go and look out for it. So that is how we see Vishwamitra Vishwamitra fell down. That is how this incident, what does it teach us? It teaches us how powerful our senses are. Our senses can make us insane at any moment. It can make us really behave in a weird way. So it's not that just by withdrawing the senses from the sense objects, we are going to be done. No way. We have our mind, inside the mind, what is going on, like how I told you the example in the last class of an alcoholic. Even though he's not externally seeing the alcohol, his mind is still craving for it, and it drags him to go and get the alcohol. So like this, our scriptures are teaching us how dangerous are these senses and what is the best way. The best way now here through this purport, Srila Prabhupada is clarifying that obviously these lower pleasures are going to go away after some point when you are involved in the devotional service. The next verse actually will speak more to it as to how these urges can be curbed. So let's see the connection here from this verse to that verse. So even, by knowledge, I know the sense objects are going to give me distress. But no, you know what? I have these urges in me. The urges are really troubling me. So what can I do about the urges? I have no control over my urges. So Krishna, he's now going to advise Arjuna as to how he can tolerate the urges. So let's look into this verse, which talks about tolerating agitations till the end of the life. If Shaknoti हैव यस्सोधुं प्राक्शरीर विमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधो भवं वेगं sayukta sa sukhi naraha. If one is able to tolerate till the time of giving up his present body the urges of the senses arising from desire and anger, he will be well situated and be happy in this world. That is what 5.23 says. So how can you tolerate? So let's first look at the duties of a transcendentalist. He strenuously tries to control the forces of desire and anger. Then what does he do? If material desires are unsatiated, say for example, your material desires are not fulfilled, then anger comes. After that, your mind and all the sense organs, they become agitated. So what does this person he do? The transcendentalist, he is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses. Oh, really? How can he tolerate? What is the trick? What is that I can learn from this? He is tolerating it by acquiring higher taste. That is how he is tolerating. That is the secret formula. So he is doing this by hearing, chanting, by association of devotees. By all this process, he is able to get this higher taste. And after this higher taste comes, you lose interest in the pale things, pale material things. I'm not interested, because we saw the example even from second chapter, right? The example of ocean and puddle of water. So this it's similar to like that. So when we acquire the higher taste, we no longer care for the lower sense gratificatory pressures. They no longer are going to agitate us. So this is what is described by Srila Prabhupada, calling this person to be in the Brahma Bhuta stage. So to this person, he experiences happiness within, and he is no longer looking for external material happiness. When such a stage is reached, it is called Brahma Bhuta. Okay, so that is so there is urges. There are 6 urges by the genitals, speech, anger, tongue, stomach, and mind. This person, the transcendentalist, he is no longer affected by this because he has acquired higher taste. When you acquire happiness within, you no longer care for external happiness. So now, so let's try to so even if you look at Vishwamitra's example, what did he do? He went to the forest, and I told you he was disturbed by Menaka. But after that, he came back again to the forest. And this time he didn't want to be distracted by any ladies. And so he went to the forest. He increased his tapobalam. He became very powerful, very strict and strenuous. Now Ramba came. When Ramba came, you know, she actually showered parijata flowers on Vishwamitra. This time he became very angry. Last time Menaka cheated me, and this time you have come. Why are you making me angry? He angrily looked at Ramba and turned her into a stone. So after this, his tapobalam went down. So in this way, even if you're able to control on the sense, there is still problem with anger. The anger has to go away. That is what is being talked about by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. The anger, one is controlling the senses away from the sense objects. Another is anger. So through Vishwamitra's example, we can see that even though he controlled his senses, he is not still able to control his anger. So this is what is important for us to understand. So by engaging ourselves in the higher process of devotional service, we will be able to slowly tackle the problem of the urges of the senses and also anger. Okay. So if you look at Ambarish Maharaj, it's a beautiful example, another example that we can all relate. And Krishna consciousness is such a nice thing that automatically all the material enjoyments, they become distasteful. or it becomes pale. It becomes, you don't feel like relishing it anymore. We can see that in Ambrish Maharaj, how each of his senses was used in Krishna's service. He fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. He engaged his word in describing the glories of Lord Krishna. He used his hands to clean the temples of Lord Krishna. His ears were used in hearing about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. His body, he was completely utilized in the service of Krishna. His nostrils, it was used in smelling the flowers of Lord Krishna. And his tongue was used in tasting Krishna Prasad, or tasting the tulsi leaves that were offered to the Lord. In this way, if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto, 4th section, 4th chapter, it talks about how Ambrish Maharaj, how he was using each and every sense of his body in the process of Krishna consciousness. So if you all look at it practically, it'll be very, our senses will resist actually. It'll say, no, let's not engage in the spiritual activities. You're not going to experience much pleasure in it. Like that, that is the initial reaction you will have. It is said that, say there is an example that we can all relate. So I'll just say this really quick. A person, he is suffering from jaundice. He has, even if he takes sugarcane juice, it is going to taste bitter. Even though it is sugarcane, it is still going to taste bitter. But if he continues taking this medicine, he gets cured and he starts enjoying the juice eventually. Similarly, now we are spiritually sick. That is what is our status. We are spiritually sick. But if we continue to take the medicine of devotional service, our poisonous senses, they eventually get purified. So this is the status of us, meaning we are spiritually sick, just like that of a jaundiced person. Even though he drinks sugarcane juice, he's not relishing it because it tastes bitter. But in the process, when his the medicine gets into his body and he gets cured, then he will be able to enjoy and relish the juice. Just like that, even though our senses feel miserable to perform any spiritual activity, slowly by engaging our senses are going to get purified. Okay, and now let's move on to our next verse. I'm sorry, I'm going on. Here, just 2 more verses. Let's try to go through. Hope it's okay, Mataji. Just 2 more verses to go. So we'll be done really quick.
Sure, Mataji, finish it off.
Yeah. So the devotee is personally maintained by Lord Krishna. So this is the 26th verse of Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter. Let's try to understand this. I'm directly reading from the slide here. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on the land, and the tortoise meditates on the egg while in water. Similarly, a devotee in Krishna consciousness can elevate himself to Lord's abode by simply constantly thinking of him in Krishna consciousness. He doesn't feel the pangs of material miseries, and this state is called Brahman Nirvana, or absence of material desires due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. So we saw from the last verse that obviously we are able to, this person, he's able to tolerate the urges, he's able to look at everybody with the equal vision, and he's able to control his anger and all the material desires. So this person, he's free from all the material desires, and that is why this person is in the Brahmabhuta stage or Brahman Nirvana state, where there is absence of material desires. And what is the reason? Because he is constantly engaged on the Supreme. And Srila Prabhupada here gives various analogies. We know the birds sit on the eggs. This way they will keep it warm, and they hatch the eggs, and the new birds, they come out of it. So the birds, they actually nourish just by the touch. Similarly, the fish, they look upon the offspring, and tortoise, they do meditation. There are certain kinds of living beings like swan, which is capable of separating milk from water. So these are all the examples that Srila Prabhupada gives just for us to understand this principle, that even though the Lord is in Goloka, if you're going to constantly be remembering him, he is going to remember you also. So both ways you're going to, you're meditating the Lord, and the Lord is also meditating on you. The Lord is actually always there within the heart, thinking for our welfare. And when we don't think about him, That is like a patient, he's given a medicine and he's disproving to say, I don't want to take this medicine. Then how can the doctor cure the patient? Unless he has to cooperate, right? Like that, we have to look at the Lord. We have to meditate upon him. We have to concentrate and focus and remember him. That is when the Lord will start to focus on us also. So when we start to cooperate, the Lord will also bestow his mercy upon us, which is what was being clarified by Srila Prabhupada through this purport. Okay, now let's move on to our last verse for today. I'm sorry. The peace formula. How are we all going to get peace? How is it possible? It's a very important question, right? That comes to all of us. Everybody is looking for peace and happiness and satisfaction. So how can we get this? That is what this verse clarifies. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram sukrutam sarva bhutanam nyatvam shantim richati. I am the supreme enjoyer, the ultimate beneficiary of all the activities and austerities. I am the supreme proprietor of all the planets and demigods. I am the well-wisher of all living entities. And one who knows this attains peace, liberation from the pangs of material miseries. So I'll clarify a very important point here. Peace is something elusive. Srila Prabhupada here explains in the purport. We don't have peace in this earth. Seems like earth is going into pieces because nobody knows the formula of how to keep everyone together. The formula is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada uses this term predominator to indicate that Krishna has a position. Unless we accept Krishna as a predominator in our life individually and collectively, there is no question of peace. All the attempts to bring about peace, they are going to be artificial and it's just not going to fulfill. Unless a person is in Krishna consciousness, then only he will understand what is the peace formula. So they will never be able to bring about peace if they don't know about Krishna consciousness. So similarly, when a world is full of animalistic people, what can we expect than a disturbance? I mean, if you have animals or dogs in a set of room, obviously it's going to bark. You can't have peace there. So in a similar fashion, Srila Prabhupada says there, if the animalistic peoples are put together, then how will we have peace? Animalistic people meaning they want to be the enjoyer. They want to be the proprietor. They want to be the controller. It's all about themselves being the controller. We all know the scenario of Hitler and other people who all wanted to be the ruler, but ultimately what was their destination? They committed suicide and finally they had to die. So how will peace be there when such kind of individuals are there? That is what Srila Prabhupada tries to bring and clarify through the purport. And when we understand that the Supreme Lord, he is the proprietor of everything. He is the well-wishing friend. And he is there for, he is the ultimate controller. That way, that is the only way we can get peace. This is what is being clarified by Srila Prabhupada. So just one small story that I like to quote. It's a very, very nice story because that way you'll be able to relate to what does this mean. So we all know the story probably. So it's not going to take much time, just one more minute. So in Vrindavana, we see Krishna wanted to show Narada Muni the exalted natures of the gopis. When Narada Muni came, Krishna said, I have a headache. This is the story that Srila Prabhupada spoke so many times. Narada Muni, he was really worried. What can we do? What can we do? So the only remedy, Krishna says, is the dust from the feet of my devotee is what is going to cure my headache. So not only you give the dust from your feet, he asked Narada Muni, he says, can you please give some dust of your get dust of your feet? Oh, how can I give dust from my feet? It's not possible. It's not possible. I can't do this. I don't feel that is right. I'm just a small devotee. I can't do this to you. And Krishna said, then go and ask the gopis and see what the gopis are saying. Krishna asked Narada Muni to go to the gopis now. When Narada Muni actually went to the gopis, he asked the gopis, he told about the situation that Krishna is having a headache and that he needs the dust of the devotees. That way his headache is going to get cured. What did the gopis do? The gopis actually gave buckets and buckets of their dust. And Narada Muni, he asked the gopis, don't you realize you will go to hell for this? You're giving dust from your lotus feet. I mean, don't you know you're going to go to hell? What did the gopis say? Yes, that is okay. I mean, if we can relieve the headache of Krishna, even for a moment, then that's all we care about. Even if we were to go to hell, no problem, we'll go to hell. So this is the meaning of true devotion to the Lord. This is the meaning of being free from envy and self-interest and no enjoying spirit. The gopis didn't want to enjoy separately from Lord Krishna. Their only desire was to give pleasure to the Krishna. So this is what is the Lord being called as supreme enjoyer is just understood through this example. In a similar fashion, I wanted to quote examples for Sarvaloka Maheshwaram and Suhritam Sarvabhutanam, but because of lack of time, I'm not going to do that. Thank you all devotees. Jai Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Because of him, we are able to release this Bhagavad Gita 5th chapter. I'm so indebted. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for patiently listening to me. Hare Krishna. And one more verse that says is that, how can we achieve the realization? That is through chanting and association of devotees. That is the way we can actually attain this realization of Brahma Bhuta, all that we talked about. How can we actually get these qualities? That is all through the devotional service, that is chanting and association of devotees. Just wanted to clarify that. I am sorry, I also forgot the slide. Which is better? So summary to see, the first verse talked about which is better, renunciation of work or working in detachment. Second verse to sixth verse spoke about karma yoga being equal, but it is easier than sannyasa. And 7 to 16, it spoke about nishkama karma yoga, freeing one from bondage. And then there we saw the three doers concept. We also saw about what is nishkama karma yoga summary. And we were able to see the city of 9 gates. All this was seen in 7 to 16. And then the ignorance goes as a result of understanding and getting this knowledge. Then what happens? This person, he attains liberation. So we saw the characteristic of a self-realized person, how he has equal vision. And then we also saw about how this person is not agitated by his senses, not even the urges of the senses. He's not agitated by that. He's able to tolerate the urges of the senses. After that, we saw that if a person constantly remembers Krishna, then Krishna also remembers him as he remembers Lord Krishna. So just like how the fish, tortoise, and we saw the different examples. And then finally, the peace formula, which is Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. With that, we conclude today's session of chapter 5 Bhagavad Gita. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees.
Hare Krishna, Radhika Mataji, thank you so much. It was a fantastic presentation. I really loved the stories and the analogies that you added. It was so nice. It made everything very interesting and easily understandable. So thank you so much. The different analogies, the examples, the stories, all that made the entire chapter easily understandable. Thank you. You've taken a lot of effort to put this together. So very, very grateful to you. The presentation was very beautiful, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji, for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
And anyone has any questions or you want to ask Mataji anything, you can please go ahead. I hope they are able to unmute.
Yeah, they are able to unmute Mataji. I gave the permission.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mataji. It was a wonderful session. And the slides were excellent and the explanation were very good with the stories. It was very easy to understand, Mataji. So I have only one, not a doubt, but I need some more information on it, Mataji. When you say about the knowledge of the three doers, you said, no?
She's back, Mataji. She's here. You can continue.
Okay, Mataji. So my question
Mataji,
is,
I got disconnected. I'm sorry, I missed you.
yeah, no, I'm just saying now. I repeat the question now. I didn't say it. Yeah, Mataji, when you were telling about the three doers, so when we say the role of the soul is initiator and the super soul, it sanctions it based on as we deserve or not. So on what criteria is this deserving comes, Mataji? Because for example, if there is a class, we have a class in Bhakti Sangha or something, and I have a desire to attend it, but some works comes that I am unable to attend it. So why did I miss it? Like, so what the one, based on what condition is this deserving comes?
Yes, it's your karma, Mataji. It's the karma factor that decides whether the super soul, if we were to get approved for a particular desire to be fulfilled, then we should have that karma in us so that it can get approved. Haribol? Mataji, are you here?
Yeah.
Yes, so it's the karma factor that is actually the decision maker, Mataji. Lord, obviously he's not partial, and that is why this karma actually comes into play.
Okay, Mataji. So if that is the case, we see some people, they're doing the bad things, bad activities. So they desire and they plan to do something, to commit something bad. And so there the actions takes place. So it obviously means the super soul have sanctioned it. He's allowing them to do
Correct.
it. So is
Correct.
that also based on their karma? They're doing the bad things also?
Yes, Mataji. The thing is, say, for example, my mom, she gives me chocolates. And my mom says, just eat 2 chocolates. But I just say, I want more chocolates. I just want the whole packet. I can take care of it, I tell her. And I complete the whole packet. And after that, I lose 2 or 3 of my tooth. Then I just say, oh my God, I lost my tooth. And now I realize I shouldn't have eaten. But I wanted more. I craved for more. So that is the reason. I mean, due to ignorance, I committed that mistake, right? And slowly, when we get some knowledge, we understand what is a good desire, what is a bad desire, material desires, what is spiritual desire. Slowly, all that realization happens, Mataji. Till that time, even though we are, for example, a drunkard, right? He is put into a gutter because of him drinking alcohol. And somebody comes and says, hey, can I just lift you up? You're in a very miserable state. And this drunkard, he says, who says I'm in a miserable condition? I'm fantastically enjoying and dreaming here. What do you mean? Go away. Like that, he says. What can we say about the situation, right? So Lord, he doesn't want to force any kind of desire upon a person. He gives a free independence there. I mean, independence he leaves the minute independence to the living entity for him to actually desire. I mean, he just doesn't interfere with it. What happens if he interferes with it? Then how are we going to understand what is true love to God and what is not true love to God? If you're going to artificially force a person to have all good desires in him, then how will that relationship of love come into play? It's not going to be pure anymore, because you're forcing something upon somebody. Lord doesn't want to do that. He wants to be independent of it. Hope that helps, Mataji.
Mataji, while you were giving the example of Saint Vishwamitra for controlling the senses, like Menaka Devi was coming, he heard the anklet sound and he get agitated. And after that, there was an explanation. So when we acquire the higher taste, then the lower taste is not going to agitate us. So the sage, you said the sage was already doing tapas for thousands of years. So is that not he didn't acquire the higher taste because...
So the thing is, then he becomes a bhakta. Then he gets into devotional. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you're muted.
I'm not on mute now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Mataji, Lakshmi Mataji. Hare Krishna. Lakshmi Mataji,
Yes,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Can you hear me?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm having a lot of internet troubles, Mataji. So sorry. So what happens is that when you look at Vishwamitra Muni, he was actually performing tapasya, as I told you. Yes. The thing is, we were talking about sages, right? Artificially renouncing things. They can still be agitated by the sense objects in a similar fashion, even though he has left that, he was able to talk, I mean, he was able to take care of his senses. Still, his anger was not gone. But then after he got into pure devotional service, everything was perfectly fine, right? Then he went with Rama, Rama and Lakshmana, they were able to kill Tataka. So this process is yogi, there is, for a yogi, there is a fall down. There can be fall downs. That is what is the implication of it. Hare Krishna. But for a devotee, if you look at him, because of his higher engagement, he's using everything in the service of the Lord. There is no worry. I mean, for a pure devotee, obviously there is no fall down, because he feels he's not artificially renouncing anything, but instead he's having that higher taste, because of which he is engaging himself, using his senses and other other bodily organs for the engagement of the Lord. That is the difference. So you can see that yogis, there is a fall down, but for a devotee, because there is no artificial renunciation that is happening, there is not fall down.
Okay, Mataji. Yeah, now I can understand. So earlier he was not in pure devotional service, like in Krishna consciousness. So that was a setback for him. So when
Correct.
a devotee is in a pure Krishna conscious devotional service, there will be no fallback.
Correct, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
If you are trying to artificially renounce in the yogic process, there can be fall downs.
So that's why Krishna says Arjun not to do that. Until he is pure, not to renounce it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
That is the reason why he says you should not artificially renounce. See, first you have to internally get detached, and in the process, you will also be able to externally renounce. But till that time, your heart is detached. Yeah. Till that time, your heart is not purified. You should just wait and carry out Nishkama Karma Yoga.
Okay, Mataji. So one more clarification. So Krishna is thinking, if Arjun renounces everything and goes to the forest, he may he takes sannyas, but he may sometime act like a Kshatriya, like he may get angry or he may get agitated. So that's what Krishna is meaning.
Yes, Mataji, yes. So his nature, he has to maintain his nature at all points in time. But if he goes to the, like you said, if he goes to the forest and somebody is not giving him food, then he may get angry, or he may take his weapon out and he may start to exhibit his nature, right? That is possible for Arjuna.
Yeah, because Vishwamitra is a Kshatriya, and he showed the same anger and the agitation, because he has the same nature of nature of a Kshatriya.
Mode of passion.
Yeah, more of passion. So that's what Krishna is warning Arjun. Yeah, now it's very clear, Mataji. Yeah, it's very clear. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Very beautiful class, and thank you for your service, and we are very grateful to you. Jai Sachinandana, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Pranams. Thank you for the wonderful class, Mataji. Am I audible, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, you are audible very much. Kanchavarna Subhadra Devi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, I have one doubt regarding the doers, Mataji. So in 3.27, we learned that the soul is not actual doer. Because of false ego, he thinks himself as the doer of the activities which are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. And here we are again saying that the soul is also doer. Definitely, super soul is a doer, and the material nature is the doer. So how to understand between these two chapters, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, you very well, I think you contrasted it very well by citing the verse from 3rd chapter, 27th verse, which is Prakrite Kriyamanani, right? Gunai Karmani Sarvashaha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. So again, as I told you, this one is the concept of three doers, meaning you don't think that you are the doer. You are one of the doers. What I'm trying to say is Jivatma is one of the doers. Likewise, the material nature, which is impelled by the three modes of impelled by the three modes. The three modes are Sattva, Rajas, and Tama. They are another second doer. And then we have the Supreme Lord, who is the third doer. So that is what is being clarified by Srila Prabhupada here, to say that the material nature, meaning it is impelled by the three modes. We have the impressions that are coming to us from so many births, right? And those impressions, they make us act in a certain way. So if if I'm there, I have impressions that are there from my so many births. Because of that impression, I am doing an activity, acting in a particular mode. It could be mode of goodness. Say, for example, I'm speaking now. I'm speaking, this activity is in the, again, I'm speaking about the glories of Lord Krishna. Hence, it's not bound by the modes. Okay, since we are bringing pleasure to the devotees and pleasure to Lord Krishna, this activity. Likewise, it could be a similar activity, which, say, for example, intoxication. Intoxication is in mode of ignorance. Likewise, in mode of passion, we may want to acquire something really nice, and for that we may work 24/7, and we may get that taken care of. So in the Prikriti Kriyamanani verse, if you look at it, the important point that is mentioned is that the modes are the doer, and the soul thinks that I am the doer because of the illusion. That is why it is the word Vimuda is being used. The important point is to understand there is that the soul is definitely the doer, but the soul is not the only doer. It is one of the doers. So that is what Srila Prabhupada clarifies. Again, this verse very well coincides with the material nature, the point that we were talking on the doership, material nature fulfilling, as acting as a fulfilling doer. That way. Hope that helps, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. You brought up a wonderful point. Hare Krishna. Sorry, my internet has been troubling me today, so I don't know if I missed anything.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, for the very beautiful class. I liked all the points, and I especially like the thing that you said about that the soul is the doer, but it is not the only doer. Thank you, Mataji, for the beautiful class.
Good job. That's a very difficult concept to understood. You understood. How old are you? 9 years. Very good job.
10 years, Mataji.
10 years. Good. Very good.
Thank you, Radhika Mataji, and thanks to all the devotees for your continued interest, attendance, and very beautiful questions. And thank you, Radhika Mataji, for patiently answering all those questions so clearly. So if there are no other comments or questions, we can stop here for today, and we can continue chapter number 6 next week. So try to join next week for chapter number 6, which is Dhyana Yoga. And thank you all so much again. Radhika Mataji, shall we stop here for today?
Sure, Mataji. I'm perfectly fine. So we can all stop, dear devotees. Thank you so much again for patiently listening to me. And thank you, Bhakti Sangha Japa Group, and Lalitangi and Sukhasari Mataji and Preeti Mataji for kindly inviting me to speak on this topic. So with this, we can adjourn. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
And also,
Radhika Kasturi Mataji.
Jai.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
yeah, also we would like to
Mataji, one second,
Thank
there
you,
is
Mataji.
announcement.
Hare
Preeti
Krishna.
Mataji is saying something. Preeti
Oh,
Mataji,
yeah.
please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say we wanted to express our gratitude to Vinita Gandharvika Mataji for running the call, because it's a tedious job to actually run a call day in and day out. So we wanted to express our gratitude to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, I made everybody to stop for this, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving the opportunity to serve all of you, Mataji. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Let's meet again next week. Bye bye. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.